Okay, so we are here at Comic-Con 2015 with our good friend Todd McFarlane.
Good to see you again.
And he just had a great big announcement. Tell us about that.
About a year ago we started in the building block construction aisle, trying to do our sort of fun little goofy thing. But when you're done building it, it actually looks a little more realistic and, has a diorama model feel to it when you're done. But it's still just those pieces of plastic that we were used to when we were a kid building all of the sets, right? So we had good success with Walking Dead, and we were out looking, going, hey, to sort of cement ourselves in that aisle, we're going to have to come up with another brand so we can put the two of them together. And so we were able to, lock ourselves into the Game of Thrones from HBO, which is, again, the number 1 and number 2 shows on cable. So I go, if you're going to go, start at the top and work your way down, and we were fortunate enough to be able to get both of them.
So yeah, last year at this time, you had a press conference. You sort of talked about how you wanted to have two sort of anchor lines, and we knew that Walking Dead was the first, and this was your second one.
This one was always in the planning. It just sort of was a little bit behind the curve of getting the contracts executed. But, besides trying to expand your line, because if people don't like one brand, then at least you can offer them other choices, right? You don't want to, be the ice cream store that only sells vanilla, right? So we wanted to get at least more than one brand, just because, again, the retailers aren't going to give us a tremendous amount of space on either one. But what they'll do is give us a decent amount on both, so that if you put them side by side, it'd just seem like the breadth of what we're doing was, the whole will seem sort of far more important than the parts. And because, all the shows sort of now sort of come and go and have starts and stop, you can then sort of elevate the ones that need to be on the shelves at the right time, and you're not sort of waiting for the nenext season to sort of start of anyone. You can move into what's a little more current or what's going to be a little bit more current. But, there's a tremendous crossover between the two brands. But, my wife watches Game of Thrones, right? So I go, it's sort of penetrated fairly wide, right? The numbers tell you that, right? That it's a big demographic that's watching it. Yeah. And so hopefully we can come up with a couple artistic looks that people will sort of go, it's cool, I'm going to take some of that home.
So it's a year later. You've got Wave 1 and some of Series 2 of Walking Dead in stores now. Do you feel you have to sort of explain the concept less now? Because I think last year at Comic-Con, people still didn't quite get that it was construction sets.
No, I think we still have to. Right? I mean, I was talking to my own people here, and I was on vacation. I go, guys, we're missing the sign above the Game of Thrones stuff that says this was built with 400 pieces. Right? I mean, like, somebody's walking by it, right? I mean, look at all these people walking by. It's only gonna get busier on Friday, Saturday. Yeah. How did they know that this is made out of 400 pieces? Because it looks like it's complete, right? At least from a distance. So we have to continue to educate them. I mean, we have the videos and stuff up there, but most people aren't necessarily watching TV. So I think we just need easy, obvious signs above everything. It just says, this is 400 pieces. This is 200 pieces. This is 300. And then I think we actually need to show some of those pieces, not just it finished built, but a couple of those pieces right next to it, so they go, and they get there. So I think the education is still gonna go for about another year, maybe 2 years, and then people will go, that's that guy that does that. But right now we're still a bit of an unknown quantity.
Yeah, because it's funny, because you think about a lot of the other toy displays here at places like Comic-Con and Toy Fair, and they have these model builders that'll build out these elaborate sets to sort of showcase the figures. So I think there's a little bit, people walk by and go, he's just selling little minifigures, and they don't get that. Oh my gosh, we get the whole play set. We get the whole thing in these boxes.
Well, I mean, the downside of some of the sexy stuff that we show is we can't put all that in one box. It'd be too expensive, and the retailers don't want those high price points. So what we end up doing is we tease people with going, this is on the market, and this would be on the market, and this would be on the market, and if you want, eventually you can make this if you want to be that ambitious. We're not saying you have to, because if you buy the throne room build, in and of itself, you're going to get, a couple of the steps, the back wall. You're going to get Joffrey and one of the guards would be sitting there. So you're content. You can be content with just that. But if we keep showing you these pictures that look cool over here, or the Unsullied here with Daenerys and her dragon, you go, wow, that's cool. Then maybe I'll entice you to then go, maybe I need to pick up a couple more of those blind bags. I mean, I was just talking to the HBO folks saying, you know, what we did on on Walking Dead was we delineated between a human figure and a walker,
which is a huge help.
Right. If you want to get a horde of walkers, right? You want to go. I want to circle the Dale RV with walkers, so I don't need 20 Rick Grimes sheriff. Well, you don't need 20 if you want to do an army here. You know, that's at the castle in the throne room. Then you go. I don't need a bunch of Tyrians, right? I've got 3. I don't need 30 of them. What I need is the generic army guys that I can build my army, whether it's the Wildlings or the Unsullied, whoever the Lannister. So we'll be talking about how we actually ID that on the package for the people who want to build, like I would, armies of these characters. Yep.
So for your Walking Dead, both action figures and the construction sets, does your license extend to Fear the Walking Dead, or is that something you'd have to negotiate?
We're negotiating right now, and we hope to be able to lock that down too. So it's, you know, it wasn't just an obvious gimme that you sort of did it. You had to. It was a different license, and you go, okay, let's see if we can go and grab it.
So if Light's on Fire, there's a possibility that we'd see some of that product too from you guys once the ink is dry.
Yeah, if we can finalize a deal, come up with some of the product, you know, decide when we think is the right time to come out with it, you know, because it might make more sense to just let it percolate for a year or something like that, and then go. And everybody's now picked their favorite characters, and they pick their favorite settings and their favorite background, their favorite props, and then go, oh, good, now we can do all that. I mean, you know, if we'd come out with some of the figures like early, right when the show started, nobody would have known that. I don't think that Daryl Dixon was going to be a breakout character like he was after 1 or 2 episodes. Right. So sometimes you have to just let sort of the cream rise to the top, and then you go after it.
So you're helping supervise all the construction things, helping supervise the action figure wing. You're writing comics, and you've been writing the Spawn screenplay. Like, how does your week break down with all that stuff showing up on your desk?
Yeah, look, I've got a lot of talented people that work for me. So where before, like when I was doing a comic book and I was writing, penciling, and inking, that was me in a room by myself doing all the manual labor. I don't have to do all the manual labor. What I can do now is help come up with some of the ideas and the concepts and the direction, you know, whether that's just me being a dictator or being a democracy with some of the other people in the room. And then I've got people that's their job, is to sort of go get it done. I just come in then in different points in that development to make sure it's on track and it's looking like I want to, but I don't have to do like all the design work myself. I scribble out what I think I want the boxes to look like, and then somebody else brings it back to me, you know, in a professional looking fashion, and then I'm just going, the font should be bigger, this should be brighter, this should be a little bit smaller, move the figure over, and then I'm being an editor at that point. So you know, I've started my companies over 20 years ago, so I've had 20 years of sort of learning how to balance and juggle, you know, the things that we need to do to get done, right? So now again, for something like the movie script that I just finished a couple days ago, then that's all on me. I don't like that's Todd in a room by himself doing it with nobody else's help, right? So that's a completely different one. So I have been marking off days that they know I'm not in the office, where I'm in my little writing cave and I'm just doing my thing on my own. But I go, it's the only way I'm going to get that done, because if I try to write in between people coming in and out of the office, it doesn't get done very well.
Sure.
So.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's exciting to see the new stuff finally. I had heard a rumor about this back at Toy Fair, but I knew, you know, I had to keep a lid on it until there was an official announcement. So it's great to see it, you know, on this scale here, that you guys are rolling it out. And just, you know, I love the Walking Dead stuff. I'm totally on board with Game of Thrones, and can't wait to see, because last year you talked about you kind of have the 2 anchors, and then you can fit some maybe smaller things. I'm waiting to see what some of those are too.
Some of the baby pieces in between. Yeah. We're going to work on some of that stuff too.
Do you have any idea when we might hear a little more about that?
We're going to see if the second anchor takes hold, and then we go, good. Now we have space that we can sort of be somewhat guaranteed about, so we can then start wedging stuff in between. But I don't want to get too far ahead of it. There's a bit of a process here, and once we sort of lay out the models, and eventually we'll know in about 6 or 8 months, and then we'll start bringing some of that stuff downstream.
All right, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for your time, Todd. Always a pleasure to see you, sir. And
right, you hang out here as much as I do. What are you talking about?
I do. We see each other every year. Yeah. So we'll have more San Diego Comic-Con coverage here on ActionFigureInsider.com.